Welcome to our first ever live episode of the Counterpunch Podcast, a weekly Cracked Rackets production. Alongside my co-host Archit Suresh, I'm Richard Mai, and we're here to break down and analyze all things Wimbledon. We're so excited to be with you live this time. Hope you're all doing fantastic. Archit, how are you, my friend?
I, for one, am doing fantastic. I am hyped. It is our very first live show. Anybody who's in the chat, please be sure to give us any comments, concerns, questions. We'll take it all into consideration while we're doing this show. But I say let's get on with it.
Yeah. So we're going to start off with the men's draw first, winners and losers. The big question on everybody's lips: can anyone stop Novak Djokovic? Archit, what do you think?
I'll give you a quick answer. No, but realistically, I feel like it's got to come down to a couple of candidates, whether it's Carlos Alcaraz going absolutely nuclear. He's still kind of unsure about his footing on the grass courts, despite winning the title in Queens last week. So a little iffy there. Could be even a Daniil Medvedev, who's beaten him in a Grand Slam final before, famously in that 2021 US Open final. But it just doesn't feel like there's a definitive player or game style that works against Djokovic on grass. Besides the fact that there is one player who's beaten him in a Wimbledon final and has never lost a set to him on grass before, and that's Andy Murray. But let's be real, he has a metal hip. He's not. What are we doing here?
In my opinion, the one person that I would have set up that I would say could beat Novak pulled out just hours ago. I think I've said it before, but I think the first set of last year's Wimbledon final, the way Nick Kyrgios played that set, it's the perfect example of how you beat Novak on grass, especially the unpredictability, the big serve, nice flat ground strokes. I just don't know if we have someone like that. Also to be at that caliber, besides Kyrgios. And unfortunately, there goes, in my opinion, what it could have been our one hope.
No, it's a perfectly reasonable argument. Argument. But I would say that we saw what Kyrgios was able to put up in last year's Wimbledon final, and he gave a good showing. He really did. Took the first set in what was an extremely high quality first set from him. He served his way to that first set, extremely good in the transition game, was really clean up at net, played a tidy first set, but it's just so impossibly hard to sustain that level for 3 sets, to win 3 sets against Djokovic in a best of 5 setting, especially on grass, where the delta between him and the rest of the field on the men's side is just so vast that it just doesn't feel like a real possibility. Obviously, Novak will go in as the prohibitive favorite, but there's a reason that they play these matches, and he is human. No matter how much he doesn't seem like it, he is human. So there obviously is the chance that he doesn't win Wimbledon this year.
Absolutely. Well, moving into our quarter by quarter breakdown, again, starting on the men's side, we're going to go through our seeds. Starting first, Carlos Alcaraz, obviously a huge contender, a huge question mark on how he'll do in the grass. I think this is just a case of scheduling, and we've discussed these woes on previous episodes, of not enough grass preparation. And what I think that also adds to it is that we don't see enough of them. We don't have enough to go off of. And we've seen very minimal of Carlos Alcaraz on the grass. What we have seen is really good, but we haven't seen a lot, which is troublesome for making predictions.
Yeah, no, personally, I feel like we've at least gotten, let me say this. If Alcaraz hadn't had the run that he had in Queens last week, I feel like it would have just been absolutely impossible to predict how he was going to do at this year's Wimbledon. I mean, he certainly made strides last year when he lost in the 4th round to Yannick Sinner in what was a really tight 4-set battle. But I will argue that it just feels like now we have a definitive picture of what the Alcaraz game kind of looks like on grass. And it's the same game that he brings to every surface. He's going to be hyper aggressive. He's going to go after every first ball in the rally. He's going to dart around the court side to side and just make life an absolute living nightmare for everybody involved. And he's going to attack in the transition game and do what he does. And he's shown that it can be effective on the grass. Obviously, it can be, given how well the grass adjusts to players with an offensive game style. So I'd be interested to see how Alcaraz navigates through the early rounds of this tournament, given that he's, got the additional time of best of five and just is kind of working his way into it.
Well, moving on to the next seed, right under him is Nico Jerry, who gets Marco Cecchinato in the first round. What do you make of Nico Jerry? I think that's a real tough first round.
I do think it is a real tough first round, but I just think Yari has just undeniable weapons for this surface. Like with his first serve and his forehand, the ability to play first strike tennis is just it's a game changer. It really is, especially on this surface. Do I think that he's shown real signs of success on the grass previously? No, I don't. But I also think that you'd be a fool not to think that his weapons wouldn't work on the surface. So I do think he gets through this first round. And after that, it does get quite a bit tougher.
I mean, looking at both guys that could be potential second rounders for him, Kubler and Humbert, big weapons on grass courts. We've seen them play well on grass before. I don't know if he goes past second, but if he does, it's probably Alcaraz waiting there for him. So
Yeah.
really
And to
tough, but
me,
agree with those weapons.
yeah, to me, I have him getting through Cheganado and then losing in the second round to, I believe I had Kubler beating Humbert and Yari here, but Kubler has now made the fourth round of Wimbledon last year. Humbert, a former Hala champion, so definitely not an easy path for him. And can I just say, like, this quarter is unbelievably stacked. There are way too many good players in this section of the draw.
Yeah, and we'll get to that soon, but the next seed, surprisingly at 19, Alexander Zverev, big weapons again. If he can flatten out his strokes as we've seen him do before, I think this could be a really good place for him to be. He doesn't have the worst of draws up until that third round. Marc-André Hassler, very difficult. That third round is going to be tough. 3 out of those 4 players are, I think, Grand Slam quarterfinalists, or at least fourth rounders,
Yeah, something
which
like
will
that.
make it very difficult for him. But big games on grass between Berrettini, Sonego, and Demonor.
Yeah, De Minaur just now making the Queens final, losing to Alcaraz. Berrettini, obviously a former Wimbledon finalist. Whatever you say, like you can disregard the health concerns. If he is healthy, he's a contender for this title, but he just isn't. So I really wouldn't factor him too much. But even then, you can't discount the fact that he could find his form once again. And Lorenzo Sonego, just again, what we've established, weapons, weapons, weapons. That's what gets you wins on this surface. And Sonego has that in spades. So
And the next seed is, we just mentioned him, Alex de Minaur made the final in Queens. Great run there, really proved himself on the grass. I just think this is such a force to be reckoned with in this quarter. I think he's going to be so difficult. I have him losing in the fourth round to Carlos Alcaraz. I don't see anyone in this draw that can do enough damage. Berrettini, I just don't think he's established enough yet. I know he's, made the final here before, and he's obviously so good on the grass, as proven by that Wimbledon final. I just don't think it's enough. I mean, Alex de Minaur looks really good on the grass this season, so that's where I have him.
yeah. And one thing that I do want to talk about are the improvements that De Minaur's made on his serve and his ability to kind of get into the court, especially on grass. I feel like just the way that the grass makes the ball stay low and gives De Minaur the ability to hit through his slice wide on the deuce side, especially his ability to navigate his way through service games and put pressure on his opponents with that unrelenting depth and like very solid pace generation that's clearly improved every year that he's been on tour. Now, do I think that he has real weapons that can manhandle and dismantle the game of any top player? No, not really. But I do think he has a very effective game for grass. And you just can't deny that his movement is second to none.
Great movement and also great reflexes up at net, which is going to be important if he chooses to take on that serve and volley approach that, for example, like a Maxime Cressy has.
Yeah.
So
And
those
he's
net
got a solid,
reflexes are
yeah.
huge.
And he's got a solid transition game, really good slice, very respectable hands in the forecourt. Like I wouldn't say they're like Oh, they're Roger Federer. No, they're not. But they're darn good. Like they're weapons. They really are. Those are his weapons. His intangibles really are Demonar's weapons. His ability to compete, the speed, and just the tennis IQ that he brings, especially on grass, just really elevates him, especially on the surface, which I feel like gives him a real shot at making some noise here.
And it absolutely shone at the Queen in Queens. And I mean, I think what we saw there is why you can have so much confidence in Demonor if that's who you want to back this Wimbledon. The next seed is exciting to me. I think this is going to be really big for him, and it's Francis Tiafoe, new to the top 10, seated at number 10. Man, do I think he'll make a splash here, but that's one tough first round. Yibing Wu. I mean, of all the people you could have drawn as a top 10 seed, that is not who I want to see across the net if I'm Francis Tiafoe. But I think he can do it. He's got a really nice game for the grass, nice big serve. Can flatten out his strokes when he needs to. Just I think this could be his year. I mean, he already has made a splash at the US Open last year. I think he can follow it up again with another. I have him in the semifinals. That's a little bit with Holger Rune in this quarter. It makes it a little bit difficult to say, but I think
I
that's
do want to
who
establish that you
Alcaraz will
have
see.
Francis Tiafoe in the semifinals. I mean, first of all, what a moment that would be for American tennis,
Yeah,
especially because Wimbledon seems to be the tournament that just captures the audience in a way that the other slams don't in the US. And I'm talking about even with the US Open, it just seems to me that whether it's the fact that, oh, kids aren't in school, or Wimbledon captures the US audience right in the July 4th weekend and it's always on ESPN, whereas maybe like the French wouldn't be because it's on Tennis Channel, rotated to Peacock. Maybe those are the issues, and obviously the Australian Open with the hours. But it does feel like Wimbledon, with the prestige and the glory that it holds in the tennis calendar, it does feel like that would be a massive step in American men's tennis. To see Francis back it up with what he did at the US Open last year and get to the semifinals, that would be unreal for him and for American tennis. I mean, I'm with you, maybe not all the way with you, but I'm with you on the extent to where Francis just has the game to succeed on grass. The first serve, the forehand, the movement, the ability, or, well, actually, not the forehand, sorry, the backhand, the movement, and the ability to just maneuver his way around a grass court with the creativity and just the finesse that he's able to establish on the court. It's it's phenomenal, really. But to me, Francis just has the ability to physically last with anybody in a best of five setting. Like Francis Tiafoe, and I'll give you another hot take. He might be the best athlete on tour.
I'll accept that take. I definitely would put him in my top five in terms of athleticism, movement, flexibility,
And again,
all the
before
things that you need.
yeah, and before people get at me in the chat, I'm just gonna say, not I'm not saying he's a better tennis player, a better mover on a tennis court
Yeah.
than, say, Novak Djokovic or Carlos Alcaraz. I'm just saying, as an athlete, Francis has those just elite traits, whether
He's
it's the
also very
twitchiness of the
well
muscles.
rounded
Exactly.
in terms
Yeah.
of athleticism.
Yeah.
Whereas other players may excel in one case, but not the other.
Yeah.
But what does scare me about Tiafoe are the other seeds in his quarter of the draw, because they are very daunting. The next one is his potential third round, Grigor Dimitrov, who, yes and no. I feel very conflicted about what I would call Dimitrov's ceiling. He has made the semifinals here before. It's been a very long time since then. So, and a lot has happened since then as well. I don't. I think that this goes Tiafoe's way. I do. That's why I have him as far as I do. I think Tiafoe also does very well in late stages when he makes those late stages, just because like a lot of other players, both on the men's and women's tour, you kind of build and build and build throughout the tournament, and with more match wins, you get more confident, and that consistency goes up. You get used to the atmosphere, the courts, all that good stuff. And I think that's why I have France going as far as I do. How do you feel about Dimitrov though?
No, I actually feel pretty good about Grigor. Like just because of the fact that in a draw where the rest of the crew on grass, barring Djokovic and Murray and the older guard, the rest of this generation on grass tends to struggle with the movement aspects and is just somewhat unfamiliar with how to navigate a grass court, especially in a best of five setting. When that's the case, and given the fact that Wimbledon has been so open for so many years now, it just it really just feels like if something breaks Dimitrov's way and he finds himself in the third round facing an unseeded player or fourth round, he could really make some noise. I really do think so. Like Grigor's ability, especially with how well he can keep his backhand slice low and just the fluidity that he's established in his movement and even with his ground strokes, you can't deny the fact that Grigor can be very, very dangerous on the surface.
I think that in his kind of like, I don't even know what you would call it, that portion between him and Tiafo, I would pick him to beat any of those guys except for Tiafo. Need we remember that the last two Wimbledons have gone very well for Francis? Third round in 21, fourth round last year. I think he could follow it up with some more. This is a tournament. This is the slam that Tiafo, I think, historically has done the best at. Um, maybe the
Before
US.
making the
I would tie with the
semifinals of the
US
US
Open.
Open. Yeah.
He
Well,
made
to
the
me, the
quarterfinal
US
of the
Open, yeah.
Australian in 2019. The French never
The
usually
French
goes
is the
really well
French
for
with
Americans.
Tiafo. Yeah.
And in Wimbledon in five appearances, two third rounds and a fourth round, only bested by the U.S. Open, two fourth rounds and a semifinal. This is a tournament that he knows and does well at. I just think that this is his moment because his game has grown so much since last year. And, if he could make the fourth round with his game last year, I think he can go farther with this more developed game this year.
Yeah. And I think we all knew that he had this in him. I think we all knew he had the game for this. It was just about finding the consistency and figuring out a way to regularly package all of his tools and attributes into a way that wins points at a successful rate consistently. And that's always been the question with Francis, but now he's figured out a way to package the serve, the ability to keep his backhand hard and flat back through penetrating the court. And even the forehand has certainly had its improvements in just the touch, the athleticism. He's able to he's now found a way to make Francis Tiafo style tennis. He's turned it into a winning. I don't know. He's
Winning formula, let's
yeah,
call it that.
yeah, winning formula. Francis Tiafoe is just good at tennis now. Like,
Great way to put it. Seed number 31 moving on is Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. I am not very high on this one. This one, as opposed to other players, historically his worst slam. Has not made it past the second round, two appearances, first round, second round in 21 and 22, respectively. I think that honestly, I have him losing to Van de Zandschulp in the second round. I just think this is a very unfortunate draw for him. Tough wild card in Arthur Fils, and then to be followed up with what will probably be Botic Van de Zandschulp, who made the fourth round last year here. I
yeah.
just it's tough for him. It's really tough. And I don't think it goes farther than the second round. If it does, come on, you have Holger Rune, Matteo Arnaldi, Carballes Baena. This is not a very favorable draw for him.
No, yeah. If you want to I'll do you one better. I have him losing to Feast in the first round.
Really?
I to me, this is the match. This is the first round of this quarter. This is the one that I feel like everyone's attention should be towards. By the way, this is the second This is the second main draw of a slam that they've played each other in the first round, with Feast taking Davidovich Fokina to 4 sets on clay, 4 really tight sets, mind you, but 4 tight sets
minding you, that
on.
Davidovich Fokina is a clay court player. Like that's kind of
I
his
mean,
strong suit per
not
se.
yeah, not to discredit anything that he does on the hard courts, but his strength and his best surface historically has been clay. And structurally, I just feel like Feast has the ability to really get after things, especially with just the aggressive mindset that he has. I don't know if he's ready to score as big of an upset as this on grass yet, given that he's just had such little experience in his career. But
This is
he
one
could make it really interesting.
this is one of my first rounders that I've starred in terms of like when I pick, matches and do like match predictions, I always pick at least one upset in the first round. I think that's a good kind of benchmark to set yourself if you're doing a bracket challenge. There's going to be, I mean, like record wise, there is almost always an upset in the first round. A seed goes down. And this is one of the ones that I've started as my potential, a seed could go down. It's not his surface, tough opponent. I just don't think this is his time at the US Open, probably.
We'll give it to him
Moving
there, yeah.
on, Holger Rune. What do we think? I'm very iffy. He could do some damage. I think he has a very favorable draw, except for Matteo Arnaldi. I haven't seen what he could do on a grass court, but I think he could do very well. I have Rune probably fourth round.
Yeah, to me, I think Rune gets I think he gets as close to holding seed as he can. Like to me, Tiafo is just a better grass court player than Rune is. And not to say that Holger couldn't be a factor on grass in the coming future. He just doesn't have the experience yet. What I will say though is he does kind of have the Djokovician ability to slide on grass, and his ability to move in and out of corners is very fluid, and he can absorb and deflect pace really, really well, especially for someone his age. So I do think, like Holger can be a factor, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him in at least the quarterfinals, semifinals, and deep into the second week. I wouldn't be shocked to see it. I'm just not picking it, but that's not to say that Holger can't make a real run here.
The next seed down is somebody that I'm very excited about because I think this guy could do a lot of damage, and it's Daniil Medvedev. Has a really
Well,
nice
but
game for
before
this
we before
surface.
we move on to the next quarter, do you want to give your final quarterfinal prediction?
Oh boy. For this quarter, I have Alcaraz versus Tiafo.
Do you have a winner?
This is so tough just because like I don't think I've seen enough from Alcaraz. Um, I mean, I think that's to me that's a five setter. To me, that's a five setter. Um, I'll turn it over to you as I try to gather myself and try to figure out a winner for that one.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go with Alcaraz over Tiafo. I'm with you. I just feel like he's shown me enough with his Queens run and what he did at Wimbledon last year. He's shown me enough progression to where I feel like even if Alcaraz isn't a comfortable grass player yet, he's still a better tennis player than the majority of players that he's going to run into. Now, I do think
Yes.
Tiafo could match him both athletically and just game style wise on the grass. I do think Tiafo kind of knows what he's supposed to do more than Alcaraz does, but I just think Alcaraz will just find a way to get through that. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the matches of the tournament if it does happen and we do get to see that matchup. But I'm going to go Alcaraz over Tiafo. Why don't we move on to the next quarter? We are sorry we did spend the majority of time on this quarter, but it was by far stacked, by far the
Yeah.
most stacked out of all of them. So we'll head on to the next.
Let's just kind of half sprint through this one. Daniil Medvedev, something that I'm very excited to see. Fourth round last year, right? Or he didn't play
Banned
last year.
last year.
Sorry, 2021, fourth round. Um, I think he has a really good game for the surface. Really great big serve. Moves pretty well for a guy of his height and his stature. And also again can really flatten out his strokes. Um, I really like Medvedev's chances. I do.
Yeah, no, I won't deny that he's got a good shot, especially with his serve and kind of his ability to, given his flat ground strokes, I really do think that he could make it happen. I am a little worried about the pace generation on the forehand still, even despite the improvements he's made with the changing of his strings from earlier this year. But I will say that I think it just feels like Medvedev has got a real shot at going deep in this tournament. So I wouldn't be surprised. Once again, I do want to shout out the fact that he's going to be playing Arthur Ferry in the first round of Stanford Tennis, a collegiate star, but tough draw for him.
Next one, Talon Greekspor gets Martin Fucsovics. Really good first round. This is one of my first rounders to watch. I really like this matchup. How do you feel about Greekspor?
Yeah, I would feel a lot better if he didn't draw Fucsovics in the first round. Fucsovics is the former quarterfinalist here, I believe. I think he made it in 2021, but he, I don't know. I think Greek Sport certainly could get through that and has the game to kind of go farther than what we expect of him. But I don't know. I think I'm picking the upset here and going Fucsovics.
In the interest of time, Francisco Cerundolo. I wish I could expand because man, do I think this guy's gonna make a real big splash at Wimbledon this year. Really proved himself, and funnily enough, the guy that is his projected third round is the guy he just beat in the finals of, was that Birmingham?
I think Eastbourne.
Um, yeah, Tommy Paul. So let's hit two birds with one stone. I think these are two guys that could make a very big impact in this tournament. Outside of the top 10 in terms of seeding, for this one, but both have done a really great job of adapting from the clay to the grass, which is so important. Took their opportunities to play those tournaments. Took the time to adapt to the different surface. And man, do I think these guys can do some real big damage. They are in a very tough draw, though. Very tough quarter.
Yeah. It's a shame that the projected third round is here. Although I will say Tommy Paul did seem to pick up a bit of a leg injury in that match against Cerundolo. I was watching. I think it happened mid second set. He still managed to win that set and was pretty competitive throughout, but it'll be interesting to see if he's able to recover from that properly and really go at this Wimbledon draw in full strength, given that he did he make the quarterfinals last year or fourth round? Fourth round.
Yep.
Yeah. Fourth round. He's Tommy Paul's only played one Wimbledon main draw in his career, which is really surprising, but I think he has the game to go deep, but I'm gonna pick Cerundolo.
With that said, a very exciting Brit is next on our list. Cam Norrie. Where do we see Cam going? I want to feel really good about this guy just because the strides he's made in his game are like he's improved so much. But this is, in my opinion, one of the toughest portions of the draw between him, Tsitsipas, and in my opinion, the strongest in terms of outside of top 15 seeds. Outside like the top 16 seeds, this is the toughest draw with Korda and Shelton. This is not a fun draw to be in.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a tough one. Korda, I think, really has potential to go deep, and Shelton obviously has massive potential with the massive weaponry off both sides and the serve. Who can deny that? But even then, if you're looking at the unseeded players, it's Cressy and Murray and even Dominic Thiem or Chris Eubanks, Chris O'Connell,
and
Chris
Yuri
Eubanks.
Vesely.
Yeah, it's a really tough section of the draw, honestly.
Yeah,
but I do. Cam Norrie's the defending semifinalist here. We have to give him his props. I really do think that he has the game to go far, and he can, especially with the home crowd on his side. But ultimately, I'm a little bit higher on one guy who's a little down low in the draw, and that's Sebi Korda.
He does. Can I counter and make a really ballsy statement here?
Go ahead.
There's 100 million% a world where he loses to Chris Eubanks in the second round, in my opinion.
Yeah,
What
it's a
I what
possibility.
worries the only thing that I believe Nori has over Eubanks is the experience in enduring five setters, playing best of five sets. Chris Eubanks has not made very many splashes um in Grand Slams. He hasn't made it past the second round. This is his first Wimbledon. He proved very clearly in Mallorca that he can play on this surface, that he can adapt to this surface. Um, I think he's a great player. The only part that I am very hesitant on with Eubanks is that lack of experience in 3 out of 5 sets.
Yeah, no, Chris could certainly make a run. Former Georgia Tech standout. I've always got to give the college players a shout out here at Cracked Rackets, but I don't know.
From I mean,
I don't think
honestly,
he just can do it in best of five sets over Eubanks, but with his serve and if the first serve and the first forehand are firing, then he could beat anybody. He really could.
well, from a promising American to two young Americans that have already shown us a lot of promise, Sebi Korda and Ben Shelton, I'll group them together. This is my fourth round. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. That's my
This
fourth
is your
round.
fourth round.
Is Korda and Shelton. That is my fourth round. I just these are the two Americans that have proven to us very, very clearly how good they are on grass. Like,
Well, Ben hasn't proven anything on grass, though, is my counter to that.
okay, Korda, yes. Ben, maybe I got a little bit ahead of myself. I'm just very excited to see what he can do at his first Wimbledon. This is, I think, just we've seen him prove himself on the hard court, and we know he likes to play a fast game. That first serve is going to do him wonders, especially in those early rounds. He has a really tough first round with Taro Daniel. Second round, the potential of Maxime Cressy, that tricky serve and volley. I think if he can get past those first 2 rounds, he's going to be ready to take on whoever he's got in that third round, and they're not exciting. It's Andy Murray, Dominic Thiem, and Tsitsipas, which no
Any
one
one of
wants to
those could be a
see.
win. Yeah, exactly. Like if Team
Um,
has made it that far, then he's clearly in good form and he could win. If Murray's made it that far, I'd be really
Same goes
scared.
there.
If Tsitsipas makes it that far, I'd be really scared. So
But I stand by my statement as of right now. I
fair
will
enough.
pick Porta versus Shelton as my fourth round. I think they have the game to do it. Good movers, big first serve. It's kind of like that typical American game style, in my opinion, where it's setting up a 1-2 punch. Big first serve leads to a forehand. We saw that with John Isner. We saw that with Andy Roddick. We saw that with you can just rile off a
Yeah.
list of
But
players, you
to
know.
me, it's the new age version of those where they are far more dependable from the baseline than a guy like Isner or Sam Querrey or
Absolutely.
even a Stevie Johnson or someone like that. Like a Corda's backhand, I could go on and on about
That's what I was gonna get to. Because
the
I feel
how
like if you if
good.
you
Yeah.
if you're looking at John Isner and you just keep riling at that backhand, it's gonna break.
Yeah.
It's
Or
gonna
even
break
go
much
hard into
faster
the
than Court as
forehand.
well.
But yeah.
And Shelton, the lefty, it's really tricky to play against him,
Yeah, it is. He could
especially
certainly make
with
it
that
hard.
big first serve.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
He
still
knows
trying
how
to
to
figure
pull
out the
angles out of that
movement.
serve.
Yeah. Yeah. He could. He's still trying to figure out the movement on grass. I'm really, really high on Ben. I think I'm probably more high on Ben Shelton than you are in general. I just don't know if I'm very high on him at Wimbledon this year. I think I'm high on him on grass in general, but just not this year. So for my fourth round, I'm going to go Seb Korda over, I'm going to do it, Andy Murray.
See, that's where I was hoping you were going with this.
Yeah.
But I
I
mean
think,
that four right there, Peniston, Murray, Team, Tsitsipas. First of all, I feel really bad for Peniston.
forget
Man,
Peniston. I feel worse for team.
I was just gonna say, imagine being Ryan Peniston and looking at your draw and realizing, hey, you have to play Andy Murray. And if you can get past that, you have two Grand Slam finalists, a Grand Slam winner in one of them. I'm just and then you go past that and you have the guy that just made a huge breakthrough at the Aussie Open a few months ago. Just I would be
Yeah.
so deflated looking at
Yeah,
that
no,
draw.
no, no. So is the life of a wild card at Wimbledon. But yeah, I just really quick, I do want to touch on Tsitsipas. For me,
Yeah.
he certainly could go far with his ability to hit the first serve and forehand. Notice the common theme, but the first serve, the forehand, and the volleys are great. But it's just the backhand to me is just such a weakness, especially on the return of serve. When there is that clear of a pathway to beating a top five opponent, you can bet that there will be at least one player in the draw who is going to be able to harp on that weakness and really pick at it and just break Tsitsipas down. And to me, I think Murray is going to be able to do that on the grass with his kind
I
of
even
his
think it could
savviness. Yeah.
I even think it could be Dominic Thiem. Thiem knows what to do against Tsitsipas. He knows how to play him. I think
He does. I
Tsitsipas,
just don't. I just don't think Team has the form right now, which is really unfortunate
yeah.
because you wish he could have gotten an easier first round, but it is what it
I
is.
think honestly, with Tsitsipas, what makes it so difficult here is his game is way better accustomed to a clay court. With the heavy topspin he hits, his kick serve is great, no doubt about that. What does that do for you on the grass? Not as much as any other surface. So I have my doubts about Tsitsipas. I don't have him going farther than my ceiling for him is the quarterfinal. Um,
Yeah, that sounds
I
fair.
honestly I don't even think it gets there. I think by the time he gets to the
Yeah,
fourth round, Ben Shelton figured it out. Like
I think by the time he gets to the second round, Andy Murray has had it figured out for 10 years. So
I can 100% see a Shelton versus Andy Murray for third round, and that very much so excites me.
yeah,
Um, with that said, I think I
final
think we
quarterfinal
established
prediction.
our quarterfinal. Corda Shelton, Corda Shelton, American, all American quarterfinal.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go. Wait, how can Corda and Shelton be in? Are they in the
Oh,
same
sorry,
half
sorry,
of
sorry.
the?
My thing is just wonky. It's showing me a semifinal in the place of quarterfinal. Um,
Because if they
Cerundolo
meet, they would
versus
meet in the
Corda.
fourth round, wouldn't they? Yeah.
Cerundolo Corda.
Yeah. I have Cerundolo Corda, and I have Corda winning.
Uh, I'd have to take Cerundolo on this one just by a hair.
Yeah, it's a fair
I
assessment.
can I see Corda winning though. I just think Cerundolo has much better momentum. I think coming into Wimbledon with a title
Yeah,
is
no,
so powerful.
yeah. On the flip side, he
With that
could even
said,
be quite tired by the time he gets to the quarterfinal. But
yeah.
let's move on to the next section.
And this is someone that I'm very excited. Talk about quarterfinals, made the quarterfinals last year. Yannick Sinner. Oh boy, I'm high on him. I really want to see a deep run from him. God, what I wouldn't give. What I wouldn't give to see a deep run from him.
Yeah, I think consensus wise, we might between the two of us, we might be the highest podcast on the world on Yannick Sinner.
Yeah.
Like given the way we've hyped him up throughout this entire year, like people if people only listen to this podcast, they'd be like, why doesn't Yannick Sinner have 8 Grand Slams by now? But what can we say? He's just our guy. Every show has to have one guy. Ours is Yannick Sinner. But to me, I am a little concerned about the ankle issues that he's had and just the ability to stay healthy, especially in best of 5 sets. But if he can navigate his way through this section, I do actually have him getting to the quarterfinal and winning the quarter. So
As do I. I think this is a very favorable draw for him. Honestly, you look at the other guys in his draw; it's just so favorable for him, in my opinion. The seeds that he got are again, not as dangerous as other seeds. Not to say that they're not dangerous at all, but I would say not as dangerous as say the Corda Shelton that we just got off of.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Like to be getting Dan Evans, Yoshito Nishioka, who else? Taylor Fritz. Yeah, Taylor Fritz is really
I
tough,
mean,
but
the only threat, in my opinion, is Taylor Fritz. If you want to go farther than that, I'd say Altmaier could be a threat. To get Diego Schwartzman in your quarter is some sort of luck, honestly.
I hate
Just
to
because
say it, but yeah.
Schwartzman's listen, I love Diego Schwartzman. He's awesome, but man, his record this year has been, let's say, less than stellar.
Yeah, it's been
Um,
abysmal. You can just say it. It's been abysmal,
it's
but
it's been awful, man. For a guy that was in the top 10, it's been really, really bad.
yeah. And he is starting to find some form. Like he's picked up a couple of
Yeah,
wins recently, and
a few
honestly,
wins here
I
and
do
there.
root for him. Like I really do think I really wish Schwartzman could find the level, but if it's,
I,
I don't
I,
think
I
it's going to
root
happen
for him
here
too,
of
but
all
we have to
places.
be honest with ourselves at this
I don't think it's
point.
going to happen at Wimbledon of all places. So do with that statement what you will, but just even then going through the rest of the list, to me, Roberto Bautista Agut could be very, very dangerous. Former semifinalist here. He is a real veteran on grass and knows his way on the surface and can beat just about anybody. And if you have an off day, he will capitalize and just make you pay. So Bautista Agut could be tough. Shapovalov,
Shapo's tough on the grass. We know this. This
yes, we
is,
know
I
this,
mean,
but we also
when
know a
we
lot.
talk about like predominantly hardcourt players, there's always like they do better on grass or clay. Shapo's one of them that is, I would say, a hardcourt player that does better on grass. I have a lot of doubt just because his game is very streaky, and a
Yeah,
lot of time he
and it's just
wins
the problem is
on
there's just
taking
low
risks.
margin. Yeah.
That's what's good. That's what I was gonna say. He wins on taking risks, and that's not a sustainable game
Yeah.
to play heading into deeper stages of the tournament.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe it works against Radu Albo. Sure, great. He's made the semifinal here before. Not surprising because when he goes
I'm
on a hot streak,
I do think
he
that
goes on a hot
Shapovalov
streak.
actually I do think that Shapovalov actually has like a really, really bad record historically against Lloyd Harris. I don't think he's ever beaten him, which is really weird, but it's just one of those matchups
Yeah.
in tennis where you see those names and you're just like, okay, well, I guess we'll
Let me
pencil it
ask,
in.
who
But
do you take out of this? Who's your quarterfinal here? I have Yannick Sinner over Bautista Agut.
I have Yannick Sinner over Bautista Agut, but
I don't
I
have enough
wouldn't be
trust
sure.
in Casper Ruud, but
I just don't think Casper's ready on grass, and he played no warm ups. And to me, he doesn't look interested in doing well at Wimbledon. We've all seen the videos of him playing golf and doing whatever. Listen, he defended his French Open final points. If he wants to take the month off, he can take the month off and just rejoin for the hard court season or for the Casper Ruud swing in Bostad, Gustad, and wherever else in the post Wimbledon clay. But
in the interest of time, what is our final quarterfinal?
Yannick Sinner over Bautista Agut.
How about the last quarter now?
I mean, I could
I have
just
a
go chalk.
very
Please don't tell
I have
me
a
we
yeah.
talked about this before the show, but please don't tell me you picked Bublik.
I have him losing to Rublev in the fourth round. Don't fret.
Okay. Okay. Thank
Um
you.
I have
Here's a
Rublev.
real
I have
upset.
Rublev versus Novak, and I have a hopeful throw in for Hubie Hurkacz in there.
Here's a real upset that I have. I have Mackie McDonald beating Bublik in the first round.
No,
I'm
no,
telling
no,
you, I'm telling
no.
you, no. Did you or did you
My
not see the
my
form that
upset in
McDonald
this
was in
one,
last week?
yes. Did you see the form that Bublik was in last week?
Have you
Um,
have you have you seen the fact that the Hala champion of the last 4 years has lost in the first round of Wimbledon?
Fair. My kind of potential upset for this one, and this is gonna be a little bit crazy. But I'm just gonna say it. Michael Moe over Felix.
No, that's a
Felix has
yeah.
not shown me enough this year, and Michael Moe has a very nice game that could fit to the grass if he adapts it well.
Yeah, Felix has definitely had his struggles with injury, form, confidence, all of it. I think Echeverry could be dangerous as well, but I just don't know if he's ready yet for the grass because it is so quick.
Yeah.
I think he's better on the hard courts and obviously had a really good showing on clay last year or at the French
I
Open last
think,
month.
and last one on the men's draw, just because we already touched on Novak, I feel so bad for Hurkacz. I do. He's a player that could excel at this tournament, and we've seen him
Yeah,
excel.
this is
How
a
many people
relatively
have
tough draw
beaten
for him.
Roger, at Wimbledon?
Well,
Not
Roger was on
many.
one knee and on his way out. It was his last match of his career, but
Yeah, sure. But bageling is something else. Um,
that's true.
but to get in the same draw as Novak Djokovic
Yeah, no, it's
is
tough.
just so tough. It is.
It's just really
And that's
unfortunate for
I have him
yeah,
down in the fourth. I have him losing in the fourth round to Djokovic. He goes
same.
if it wasn't for Djokovic, I'd have him go farther. If he was in like the quarter above him with Rublev and Bublik, I would have put him to the quarterfinal.
Yeah. No, I
A
have
million
yeah.
percent.
Yeah. No, I have him there. And then yeah, we'll just avoid the elephant in the room. Djokovic over Rublev. I just don't think Rublev has what it takes to beat Djokovic in the quarterfinal. It is what it
All
is.
right. Let's
Should we
let's
move
shout
over?
out a few first rounders that people should have their eyes on.
Why don't we go
You wanna go
with?
first? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have Davidovich Fokina and Arthur Fils. I think that could be a really interesting one. Kubler Umber could always be tough.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just
I
scrolling through
have
the draw.
three
Oh,
pretty
Matteo
fun ones in my
Berrettini.
opinion.
Yeah,
Yep.
Matteo Berrettini against Lorenzo Sonego. That's one.
I decided to go a little bit more on the obscure side per se. I have Bublik versus Mackie McDonald.
Yeah.
Um,
Upset alert. Upset
Rusuvori,
alert.
Rusuvori versus Stan Wawrinka. And this one I'm very excited to see. Jordan Thompson versus Brandon Nakashima.
Yeah, could be tough. But
I
I
think
think
that
I
one
think
could
that
be a
goes
very
five.
interesting
That goes
match.
five, I think. Yeah.
That could definitely go 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dark
Berrettini,
horses.
Sonego,
Yeah.
Tiafo, Ibing Wu.
I had that one. Yep. Tsitsipas team, I think, is a given. That
Yeah,
one's pretty
Tsitsipas
obvious.
team. Yeah.
Um, but any dark horses on this men's side?
Yeah, I mean, I have plenty. Andy Murray, Dominic Thiem, former champions who injury have kind of sidelined them in a way. But Maxime Cressy, just with his serve, if he can just catch fire for 3 matches in a row, I wouldn't be shocked to see him in the second week. Really, like, um,
I have Alexander Bublik. as
well,
people can
we
tell,
didn't,
I'm a
yeah,
little
we
bit
didn't.
high on him.
Well, we didn't
Um,
mention Milos Raonic.
that's a good one, but no, sorry, no, too
Yeah,
fresh for me,
exactly.
too fresh. Ben
I just don't think.
Shelton for me, you could call him a dark horse.
Yeah,
This one was kind of just a funny pick. In honor of my buddy Logan, who's a big fan of this guy, and I think he could do some really good damage. Yuri Lehechka.
yeah,
Nice
no,
big ground
definitely,
stroke
definitely. Yeah,
game.
Lehechka has the game for it.
Has the game to make a breakthrough.
Yeah. Later,
Um
I think we need to go over your definition of a dark horse, but we can do that off camera. But
okay, that's why I
uh
said Lehechka
yeah, yeah.
just out of nowhere.
Isn't Lehechka
I
seated?
Is he actually? I didn't think he was.
I don't know. He
No,
might
he's
be. I
not. No,
think he
he's
is.
not.
Okay.
The other one that I didn't tell you about earlier that just kind of surfaced in my mind that would be fun to watch is Marcos Giron. Could do some good damage on the grass. I was planning on throwing Chris Eubanks out there, but given that his second round is potentially Cam Norrie, you could call him a dark horse, but tough draw for a dark horse.
Yeah. No, I think Liam Brody's really tough. I have Liam Brody beating Casper Ruud. Second
Not a
round.
bad pick.
Yeah. Second round, I just think he's going to be able to find Ruud's backhand on the surface with his lefty forehand. So could be a fun battle there. Why don't we go ahead and give our semifinal and final predictions for the men and then move on to the women's draw?
Can you go first?
Okay, sure. I'll go ahead. I have Alcaraz over Sebi Korda.
Okay.
And I have Djokovic over Yannick Sinner, and I have Djokovic beating Alcaraz in the final.
I have the same second semifinal and final. I'm just so torn between Korda and Cerundolo. I'm so torn. I really am.
Why don't you go with Cerundolo
I want to pick Sebi all day long, but Cerundolo is too tempting to pick.
I think you should go with Cerundolo for the sake of the listeners not having to hear us give the same predictions.
Sure. Should I take him to beat Carlos in the semis as well?
And let's not get crazy.
Why not at this point? Why not? Why not Djokovic over Korda? Korda makes a slam final in 2023.
Fair enough, yeah.
I will say though, in all seriousness,
I wouldn't be shocked
if it was any tournament, if it was going to be any of the 4 slams, I think it would be this one just because the draw is the most open for him. Whether he's a better grass court player or hard court player, that's to be debated. But I think there are so many more,
and he's solid on clay too. He's really, really good on all surfaces.
I just think that there's so many more competitors on the hard court.
Yeah.
I think Wimbledon's way more open for him.
Yeah.
But to the ladies, and we promise we'll be much quicker with this one. Iga Swiatek. How do we feel? She looked good in Bad Homburg. Let me say it. She looked good in Bad Homburg, and I'm not gonna lie. This is a ballsy statement. I really don't think she got food poisoning. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't buy it. I think she wanted to go to Wimbledon and get prepped and get settled in.
Yeah, I think
I just think
I
that
think
she proved to herself that she can play on grass. And it's a
yeah.
big step that this is her first, I'm pretty sure this is her first pro grass event outside of Wimbledon. Last year, she went straight from the French to Wimbledon, and we all see how that turned out. She won one match and then got whooped by Elise Cornet, the seed killer.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is just,
Yeah. For
yeah.
for the sake of not speculating, I'm gonna say that, maybe she had a bit of a stomach ache and realized, oh,
Yeah.
Wimbledon's in 3
Yeah.
days. I should start getting ready for that. And maybe she pulled out just as a precautionary measure. That's all I'm saying. That's all I will continue to say. I do think she's going to be fine for Wimbledon, though.
Who are your top contenders for the women's draw? I have two that I believe is my semifinal. Sorry. That's my quarterfinal. Apologies. It's my quarterfinal.
Okay. Well, I have
And I
two
think
that are
whoever
my
wins that
semifinal.
one.
Yeah. I have two that are my semifinal, and that's Elena
Go for
Rybakina
it.
against Arina Sabalenka.
That's also my semifinal.
Yeah. I think just the ability that the two of them have shown with the first serve, the fluidity in the ground strokes, the movement has been very, very solid from both of them. Rybakina has won this tournament. She's the defending champion for a reason. She can play on the surface. Sabalenka is the same way. She's made a semifinal here and she's won a slam this year, was 1 point away from reaching the French Open final. Let's keep that in mind. We could all be talking about Arina Sabalenka as a French Open finalist right now, or even a champion. Who knows? But listen, all I'm saying is to me, Sabalenka and Rybakina are the co-favorites for the title.
For me, Sabalenka's lower than this next one. I just think so. Rybakina is my favorite, but I think that the entire tennis world has not given one player enough credit, and enough mention in the conversation for Wimbledon champion. And that's Petra Kvitova. Two-time champion at the All England Club in 2011 and 2014. Kvitova
champion in Miami this year.
An absolute grass beast. And I don't think that the media has given her enough credit and enough mentions in the conversation of who could seriously make a deep run, let alone win this title. The only hurdle, in my opinion, for her, there are two hurdles, and she has a very unfortunate draw, in my opinion. Her fourth round is potentially on Jabeur, last year's finalist. And if she beats Jabeur, say that's the fourth round, who does she face in the quarterfinal? Defending champion. This is a very tough draw for Kvitova, but I think outside of Rybakina, I would even dare to say she is probably the best grass court player, in my opinion, or one of the best outside of Rybakina. Her game is so good. That tricky lefty serve, really heavy, flat ground strokes that skim, has the ability to slice and change pace. Tennis IQ is out of the freaking roof. I just think Kvitova deserves more credit for how good she is on grass. And every time grass season comes along, she is just on a different level.
Yeah.
And
I'm not mad at
take her
I'm not mad at
1,000,000%. I can see her beating Jabeur. I don't think I can see her beating Rybakina.
Yeah, I can see her beating Jabeur, even though Jabeur's certainly very comfortable on the grass. She's in my list of contenders as well, defending finalist.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I think just the bottom half is just really unfortunate. Like, I just don't think it's going to be really hard for anybody to come out of that. I do want to throw in one more name is
go for it.
French Open finalist this year, Karolina Muchova.
Yeah. I think what sets Rybakina and Kvitova apart for me, and I think you could even attach that to Mahova and Swiatek, is they move so well. And especially it goes for Rybakina and Kvitova specifically on grass. They move very well. And we
Yeah, they're
talked
very
about
comfortable.
the new guys having to adapt to moving on the grass. That is something that Rybakina and Kvitova have done very well.
Yeah.
And I just think those are my favorites. I hate to say it that it's so limited, but like you said, I mean the bottom half of the women's draw is very unfortunate in my opinion.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate.
Yeah.
With that
With all
said,
that said, yeah.
riling through seeds, starting with Iga Swiatek. The big thing that I wanted to note for Swiatek, moves very well. We've talked about this before. Very much so a power player. Her topspin forehand is great. Unfortunately, it doesn't really fit with the grass. Hence why she's won 3 French Opens at the last 4. But what I noticed in Bad Homburg that was very promising to me is that her serve has improved.
Yeah.
It's the serve percentage went up a lot in Bad Homburg, and that was a big liability for her. Um, that's something that you could get over on clay because she had a really nice slice and kick serve that she could rely on and fall back on. On the grass, that's not as effective. That slice serve could do a lot. Kick serve won't do very much. Um, Having that first serve be more consistent because she has a really good first serve. It's just inconsistent. And that improved, promising for me. I have her going very far in this tournament.
Yeah. No, I also have her going far, but I well, not too far as we'll get into in our predictions, but I do have her in the second week. Um which Fiontek, the key has always just been the forehand losing its effectiveness on the grass, and also like we talked about the serve. She's just not as comfortable moving on the grass as she is on clay and hard even. But yeah, it feels like this could be the tournament where she figures it out. And she's certainly
Yeah.
displayed the signs of wanting to figure it out. She's put out, what her team has put out, has clearly, like, she's clearly stated, like, I want to be a Wimbledon champion. I want to be able to establish myself as one of those all-time great players who was able to figure it out across surfaces. So it would be really interesting to see if she's able to do that at this tournament. I think it's a possibility. She has traits like her return of serve, the ability that she has to just absorb pace and also just redirect it and smack it right on the baseline, a la Novak Djokovic. It's it's darn right impressive. Like it is it's just unbelievable how well she's able to impose herself on her opponents. The question is whether she can do it on this surface. I lean yes, so therefore I do have her going pretty far.
She does have a very tough draw, in my opinion. Coco Gauff, also one of my dark horses that we'll mention later, Alina Svitolina. Vika Azarenka is in this draw. Belinda Bencic and Dasha Kasatkina, 2 players that we know can play very well and adapt very well to the grass. And some other sneaky names like Katie Swan,
Yeah.
and Harriet Dart, Brits that know the grass very well, and are kind of accustomed to it better than other players that grew up in countries or grew up on clay courts or hard courts. With that said, I think the other seeds in her draw, Petra Martic and Magda Linette are the next seeds that I think I'm gonna say they are very, very difficult. I don't know if you would call Magda Linette a dark horse if you got on me about picking Ben Shelton as a dark horse. I wrote down Magda Linette.
I will at least give you Magdalena, although she is the 23 seats. Never mind. I'm not giving you Magdalena as a
Being
dark horse.
realistic,
But
full love to Magda. That is solely because of her very deep run at the Aussie Open.
yeah, but she's
That
proven
gives a
that.
lot of
Yeah,
points.
yeah,
That gives a lot of points. I just think Lynette has a very good game for this surface. Really nice heavy flat ground strokes. If she's consistent and she's hitting her marks, she's very dangerous. Keeps the ball really low. Can move really well. Super tough. Again, It's something about Polish players and their serves. On the women's side, needs work, but they're great movers. On the men's side, Hubi Hurkacz just riles serves out
Yeah,
by
has a
by
great
the
serve and
second.
great movement, just can't hit a forehand.
But Magda Linette, her first serve, when it's on, just like the rest of her game. Petra Martic, another player that can play very well on the grass. How do you feel about those two?
Yeah, could definitely make deep runs and very clearly could trouble whoever they face. If it's Swiatek, I think they could actually give her a run for her money, especially if she's not confident. But I do think that she ultimately would get through the both of them.
I think the good thing for Swiatek with this one is that she doesn't see a strong grass court player until the third round.
Yeah.
Not to say the players in that, first two rounds aren't strong players on grass, let alone at all. Just they're not grass specialists. Seeing Petra Martic in the third round, by that point, Iga's already, confident. She feels more comfortable. You look at where she lost last year. She lost to Cornet because she had only played one match on the grass up to that point. The next two seeds, Bencic, Kasatkina, we touched on them earlier. I'm very high on them. It's so tough that this is what Iga's dealing with.
Yeah. I relatively tough draw, but and even the qualifiers and the wild cards in this draw are really, really dangerous. I mean, the fact that Venus Williams and Alina Svitolina is a first round match is just downright unreal. Even
Katie
Sophia
Swan
Kenin,
being a wild card. I mean,
yeah, Sophia Kenin and Coco Gauff. Sophia Kenin's a former Grand Slam champion and had to qualify for this event. It
but
really does just go
yeah.
to show the depth of the women's tour and the ability that every single player down from 1 to top 250 really has.
Yeah. I mean the next player that I want to touch on, I'm very high on Coco Gauff.
Me too. On grass, I'm pretty
On
high on
grass,
Coco Gauff.
yes.
Her record is phenomenal. This is where she broke out way back in 2019 when she was 15, I was 15. But
She has not lost earlier than the third round at this tournament, which
yeah,
is what she did last year. In
yeah.
2019 and 21, she both times made the fourth round. Last year fell in the third. I just think she's really good for
Yeah.
this, and this
And just
is
recently scored a win over Jessie Pagula, which I believe was her first top 5 win of the year.
which is really surprising that it's taken her till July
Yeah.
to be the top
But
five
but
player.
realistically,
But
she hasn't had a bad loss. I mean, maybe one here or there, but she really hasn't had an
yeah,
astounding loss where you've come shocked at the result. But then again, like Coco hasn't had a bad loss. She also hasn't had a good win, which has been kind of the defining factor of her season. She's kind of stagnated a little bit, which I think is really interesting. And obviously, the big thing is the matchup with Iga Swiatek. How do you see that going?
um, I have to lean this in Coco's direction. I just think she's better accustomed to the grass. It's a smidge. It is a literal hair. If I'm being completely honest, when I wrote my notes last night, I totally put Iga through. Um, for me, that's a toss up. It's who's on that day, who feels comfortable up until then. I'm gonna need to see the matches prior to that match to make a confident pick because like any other player, these girls both rely on comfortability and confidence that is built up through winning earlier stages
Yeah.
of the tournament.
Well, I'll
If you
ask
put
you.
these two against each other in the first round, it might be a different question.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask you this though. Given the matchup problems that Coco Gauff has had against Swiatek, it really could be interesting. Just forehand to forehand, Iga has just found a way to really just target Coco's forehand and the structural issues that it has with the extreme grip and just her inability to really have major consistency and consistent depth on that shot. I really do think Iga could be able to find a way to target that. And Iga Swiatek might be the only player on tour who can match Coco Gauff physically, like just in terms of from a court coverage perspective. I think these two are the best athletes we have on tour when it comes to lateral
Yeah.
movement and just court coverage and all around defense. I think they are
Yeah.
1 and 2.
I agree. And I mean, that's where I think Iga just excels. I hands down have to say, and I'm gonna go as far to say both men's and women's tour. I think Iga Swiatek is the best mover in the game right now. The way that she's able to redirect pace and position her
Yeah.
body with the way that she moves, even the like minute things of like taking those little mini steps before hitting a forehand. It's textbook. Her movement
Yeah.
is absolutely textbook.
Yeah. I might
It's
even
up
agree with you.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, I just think what's so crucial, and I think this is what makes tennis so difficult to be good at, is you have to look at how much goes into footwork and movement.
Yeah.
Um, and the way that she's mastered, it's not just speed, it's body positioning, it's foot positioning, it's how you set up for a shot. It's how, even the little things of like how you distance yourself from the ball to allow, your arm swing, all those kind of little details are why I put her ahead. And I think I'll say like it was gutsy to say of both tours, but I definitely think I would put her as number one mover on the women's tour.
Yeah. No, it's not even an awful take, really. Like I kind of agree with you there, but going
It's a
back
little
to
bit
the
gutsy to say
yeah,
both on the men's and women's tour, but
when Novak Djokovic
um
is kicking around and Carlos Alcaraz has had the speed he is, but just comparatively, yeah, it's a pretty close look. So no one would really fault you for saying Iga's a better mover comparatively. Again, I'm not saying she's
yes.
faster than Djokovic or Alcaraz,
And this is
but
also not saying whether or not she's a better tennis player. I'm just looking
yeah,
at body motion and movement
yeah,
alone, separated
yeah,
from everything else.
yeah. I would still maybe lean Novak, but it's a close call. I
I
will
think the
say
big
though,
thing that
going
Novak
back,
has is flexibility. The way that he's able to stretch his body while still making an effective shot,
yeah, but
I think is
also,
unmatched.
yeah, but also just even the little things, the footwork and the little steps that he takes, we have to include that when it comes to movement as well. I think Djokovic does have Swiatek beat there. Certainly an interesting
Yeah.
tangent that we just went on, but
But to not get sidetracked,
yeah,
Jesse
really
Pagula, how do
quickly,
we feel about
sorry,
Jesse?
really quickly, I do want to make this one point. If Coco is gonna get over that matchup problem that she has against Swiatek, I do think it's gonna be at this tournament, at this surface, on this surface. Like this is
It has
clearly
to be
her.
on this
This has
surface.
to be her best shot in a while. So like,
Her,
I
I
think
think,
I think if she does
yeah.
it, it's gonna be here.
For
Okay,
me,
let's
the
move on.
main thing behind that is just because Iga's topspin forehand, that heavy topspin forehand, is way too effective on clay and hard court, and it's very much so neutralized by the grass. Like this is the place that could neutralize her game and make her a much more beatable player. We saw how much of an effect it had at the U.S. Open, at the French over the last three out of four tournaments. Um, I mean, I fully agree with you. If there's any time for Coco to finally get that win over Iga, it would have to be on this surface.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna say for my quarterfinal prediction, I'm gonna go Goff over Swiatek.
I'm gonna oppose you. I'm gonna go Swiatek over Goff.
Yeah, certainly fair.
I think even though Coco had that great outlook, this is my last point on this one. Even though Coco had that great outlook on playing Iga at the French Open of, if to beat the best, you have to beat to be the best, you have to beat the best. And that great outlook of, I'm excited for another opportunity to prove myself. That's all great and well, but I think that there's still an inkling in her mind of just like, I have never beaten her in probably what I think like 4 or 5 meetings. Um,
Yeah,
it's just really tough. Um, but it could go either way. I did I said what I said to oppose you, and with that said, Jesse Pagula. I think she has a very good draw. Her fourth round area, Pinwen Zhang is who I would point out to be a threat to her,
yeah,
but I definitely see her going very far.
yeah.
Even her
Junction
quarter
one,
as
just
it
yeah,
even her quarter as a whole is, I would honestly say, the least threatening quarter. I will dare to say that.
Yeah.
Um, Kudermetova is dangerous to me. Um, Sloane Stevens, you never know what she could do.
Alicia
Donna
Parks,
Vekic's very good.
if Alicia
Yeah,
Parks' serve just catches fire and she's able to bulldoze her way through her opponents, she could be real trouble. I'm not
yeah.
100% sold on it happening, but it's certainly a distinct possibility.
I haven't seen enough from Caroline Garcia nor Leila Fernandez to really have some, trust there. But in terms of who I think comes out of this quarter, it's Jesse Pagula.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm going chalk here too, but yeah, I'm going Jesse Pegula as well. I
I
think
believe I believe I have Pagula over Kudermetova in my quarterfinal for this quarter.
well, I had the same thing. So,
Yeah. Well, that's great. All
yeah.
right. Um, I think it's time to move on to that last quarter. This is the quarter that is just brutal.
Really tough,
Brutal.
really tough. Yeah.
Um, Ons Jabeur, Karolina
Yeah,
Pliskova,
why don't we just rattle off the seeds? Go
Petra
ahead. Yeah.
Kvitova, Beatriz Haddad-Maia, Yelena Ostapenko, Alize Cornet, notably
Oh,
the seed killer, Katie Bolter, Maria Sakkari, Maddie Keys coming hot off of a win in Eastbourne, Potapova, Krejcikova, Mahova, Alexandrova, and
yeah.
Sabalenka.
That
This quarter
this bottom
is
half is just
rude.
ridiculous. Yeah.
This this is rude. Honestly, this is just rude.
Well, no, actually, he's in the men's quarter, but okay, it's fine. I'm not funny. It's okay.
All right. Who do you have as your quarterfinal for this third, let's say this third quarter?
Uh,
I'm gonna say Rybakina versus Kvitova.
you know what?
If you would
I'm
like to
gonna.
say a repeat of last year's final, no one's gonna be mad at you.
I really, really am tempted to go with Ons Jabeur here. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go with Ons Jabeur. I'm gonna say Rybakina over Jabeur for the bottom half. Although I do believe we skipped a quarter, didn't we?
Did we?
Yeah, we complete.
No, we said
Or no, no, we're good. We're good. Yeah,
no. We're
we're good. We're
totally
good. We're good.
fine.
Yeah,
I would like to say I do like On Jabeur's first round. I think that's gonna be a very interesting match. On Jabeur versus Magda Frech. Um, I'll say it correctly because it bothers me to to say it the other way. Um, Veronica is just a really tough player. This is, I mean, I don't know how many times they play against each other. I feel like every single time I sit down to watch one of Magda's matches, it's against Ons Jabeur, and she's given Ons a tough time before. I just think the inevitable is the inevitable. She was in the finals last year, and Jabeur, in my opinion, is one of like is in the top 3, 5 of those players that are good on any surface. Those all surface players that can adapt to whatever. She's made the finals of a slam on every. No, she has not. She did not make a French Open final, but um, she did win in Madrid. That is something to be noted. She's made the quarterfinal of Roland Garros and has been the runner up at both Wimbledon and the U.S. She, in my opinion, is an all court player, an all surface player. Um, I just on this surface specifically, it is hard for me to avoid picking Kvitova.
yeah. No, certainly, and with the form that she showed, it definitely could be a legitimate possibility. I just have a hard time going against Jabeur. I think on this surface, her serve, her versatility, her fluidity, both moving in and out the court and laterally, just is phenomenal. I think her volleys, like she just has what it takes to be a really good player on the surface, and you could see it with it's the Ash Barty
With her
mold
two
of player.
Wimbledon
Yeah,
titles.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, Let me ask you who you have in the next quarterfinal, because this one's a very interesting one. Sakari, Keys, Potapova,
Yeah.
Krejcikova, a sneaky Heather Watson, um, Mahova, Alexandrova, Sabalenka. I have my quarterfinalists from the bottom part, but I think my I'm gonna let you go first because I made a very interesting pick with that top part.
Well, yeah, I think I so have I. I think I've gone for a pretty hot take here, but power tennis rules all at this stage of the women's draw, and I'm gonna go Arina Sabalenka over Anastasia Potapova.
Okay, okay. I went a little bit more nuts and a little more crazy than you did. Um, I have Sabalenka beating Maddie Keys in the quarterfinal.
I don't know if that's nuts though. Because, well, I guess it is
It's
nuts to
okay.
project Maddie Keys at a
Yes,
slam, but
at a slam quarterfinal, project Maddie Keys in a slam quarterfinal.
but to me
It's
she's
a little bit
done more. To me, she's done more than Potapova has on
well,
this
yes,
surface, and
but that was 2017.
yeah, it's fair.
She
But
also has
she's
just
coming off a title though.
generally
She's coming off
that's
a
what I was
title.
gonna say. Coming into Wimbledon with a title is very, very powerful. Half of it based on the fact of how little amount of titles there are to win before
Especially
Wimbledon.
on the WTA tour, given the
Um,
fact that there are like 5 tournaments leading up to grass.
and I don't like Krejcikova in the fourth round, but I think Maddie Keys is much more. Um, her game is just a much better fit for the grass. Um, I've watched her from like a few feet away, and oh, man, the way that she rips the ball, she has a really nice flat shot. If the shot goes to her forehand, she's ripping that, whether that be cross court or down the line. If her serve holds up as it did in Eastbourne, huge threat. I think this could be a Maddie Keys quarterfinal, which we haven't seen since the Australian Open last year when she made the
Okay,
semis.
yeah, yeah, and
It's
and when things are clicking, it just looks
yeah.
so easy for Maddie Keys, just dismantling opponents with her just raw power and aggression and depth. It's certainly like it's not an outlandish take to be projecting her to the quarterfinals. I wouldn't be doing it, but you did, so
I
it's fine with me.
I
Yeah.
just I just for me the other player. I mean, okay, Maria Sakari, her top seed in her part of the draw. I I could see. I mean, also not to mention Sakari's potential second round is Paula Badosa. Um, who did Badosa make quarterfinal last year?
I'm not sure actually.
Fourth
But the
fourth
fact
round,
that
fourth
yeah,
round last year.
yeah. The fact
Um,
that Paula Badosa
very
is
dangerous.
unseeded at this tournament,
Un
ridiculous.
Yeah. But another player that I think is very dangerous, and I think will be dangerous to Krejcikova, is her potential second round of Mira Andreeva.
Yeah.
I think that deserves a shout out. I think that'll be very, very tough.
Are we in
Um,
for Coco Mania round two?
I'm in for Coco Mania round two. Let's do it.
Okay. I
Why not? Honestly, I think
I just think physically she has some room to grow. Like I do want
she
to pump
does.
the brakes on the Andreeva takes in general. And I'm not saying just for
I
you. I'm
think the
just
Andreeva
saying,
hype train just needs to slow down a little bit. I think she
but not
deserves
by
all the
that
hype.
much. Not by that much.
Yeah.
She
I think
deserves
she
the hype.
deserves the
Yeah.
attention. She fully deserves the attention. But I agree with you that when we were at this point with Coco Gauff, if you're talking about Coco Mania, it was just I think Coco was a much more well-rounded player
But
than
Coco's like a
Andreeva is.
generational athlete though. Realistically, like Coco was so physically advanced for her age that it was just like, how is she doing this? And the way she was playing is what was really like sparking that is like she was running around the court and just um I don't know, just
There's
outmaneuvering.
no word.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like that. I'm
outmaneuvering.
at a loss for words at what she was able to do, but she was just outmaneuvering all kinds of players on the grass in 2019. It was
She was
phenomenal.
and she still does.
Yeah, and she still does. I mean, some would argue that she hasn't progressed much since then, but I would argue that she's 20 years old. So, or 19 years old. So let's pump the brakes on the Coco takes as well. And let's pump the brakes on Mira Andreeva. She still has room to kind of physically fill out and get a little stronger, and maybe the endurance needs to get a little better, but you can't deny the talent that she possesses. It's unreal.
But we're gonna move on as we did before. Some nice first round matches. There's so many to go through. We mentioned Svitolina versus Venus Williams. How that is a wild card versus wild card match in the first round is just beyond me. Rybakina versus Shelby Rogers promises to be interesting. I have Allison Risk versus Paula Badosa. I think that one's really interesting.
I think Katie Swan v. Belinda
Yeah,
Bencic could be
so
interesting.
That's the next one on my list. I have Bencic versus Swan. I think, especially with the backing of the British crowd,
Yeah, they always make it
is such a
interesting.
big factor. They
Yeah.
do.
Sophia Kenin,
Sophia
Coco
Kenin
Gauff.
versus Coco Gauff.
Yeah.
We're on the same wavelength here. Another one I have is Qinwen Zhang versus Sinyakova, who, if I'm not mistaken, Sinyakova is also, like Maddie Keys, one of the few players that comes into this tournament with a title in her hands.
Yeah.
And I just thought this one deserved a shout out. French Open finalist Marketa Vondrousova versus college tennis's own Peyton Stearns.
Yeah.
I think that's a very interesting match.
It'll be interesting.
I think,
yeah.
yeah. We mention a lot of or at least the media posts a lot of like those like big heavyweight matches of like Svitolina versus Venus or Tsitsipas versus Team, and I just think
I think it's
would
important
like
to
shine
just highlight
some light on some just very close matchups, just very close in level and are sure to be interesting and be entertaining, like a Vondrousova versus Stearns or like a Qinwen Zhang versus Sinyakova.
Yeah, and to me, that drama is what makes the opening days of slams. It's the number of five setters where you're whipping your head back and forth between the TV screen, trying to figure out, okay, well, this match is deep into a fifth set and it ended. How am I going to the next one? That's what makes a slam special. And it's important to kind of just highlight the fact that high level and good quality tennis can be found at all stages of a major, and it can be found wherever you look, irregardless of ranking and seeding and positioning.
Well, let's move on to semis and final. In keeping with what I said, Iga Swiatek, I have her winning the semifinal against, I think I'm just gonna go for Jessie Pegula.
Yeah. Well,
that quarter is so tough for me to pick, honestly.
Yeah. Well, so I'm really surprised by this, but I have an All-American semifinal, and I have Sebi Pegula. And I have Sebi Korda in the semifinals of the men. So
we're high on the Americans on the grass.
Yeah, can I just say it is a testament to how far American tennis has come to where we are picking, especially on the men's side, really, but we're picking. I mean, Serena and Venus have done their thing for years, but on the men's side, we're confidently picking multiple Americans into like the last 16, the quarters, the semis, and I picked Korda into the semi, and you've picked him for the final.
Sorry, since when? I have Alcaraz and
okay. I wasn't sure.
But here's my thing though. I think what makes the Americans so good for this surface is, I've mentioned it before, and I think it's just a product of the American system that they just produce very good 1-2 punchers where you have that big serve, big four followed by a big forehand. I said Roddick, I said Isner. You look at how well Andy Roddick has historically done at this tournament, how many finals he lost to Roger Federer. Note that I could not say he has won one, but Roger on grass is Roger on grass. But even if you take it further to products of the college tennis system and players with American coaches, Hubie Hurkacz has legend Craig Boyan in his corner, and look at Hubie's game. It's also very much so 1-2 punch, big serve, big forehand. You look at let's see, other products of the college system. Kevin Anderson, again, big serve, big forehand. I think and it fits so well on the grass. When you have a big serve on the grass, it just really, really works.
Yeah, I do think first strike tennis is the name of the game, and the serve plus one combination has been lethal, and it's what's defined American tennis for so long. But I do want to point out though the fact that the majority of these players, especially the American men, have now become so well-rounded that that's not really the strength that we're talking about, because it used to be a stereotype where it was like, okay, big serve, big forehand. They probably don't have a backhand and they probably don't volley or move well,
I
right?
think Korda and Taylor Fritz are exact reasons of why that is not
Yeah,
fair anymore. And Tiafo
exactly.
as
To
well.
me, yeah. Well, to me, Corda, Tiafo, Paul,
I was
Fritz,
gonna say Tommy Paul.
to me, their backhands are more reliable and dependable weapons than their forehands are. Even if their forehands are what wins them matches, the backhands are
Their
very
forehands
reliable.
are stronger in terms of power, in terms of raw power,
Yeah,
but their
but their
backhands are
backhands are
much more
better
consistent and
strokes. Yeah.
dependable.
Yeah. The backhands are better strokes. You could even make the argument that Ben Shelton has a better and more dependable backhand despite the forehand artillery and the power that he possesses on that wing. You could make the case that he has a better backhand. So it's a testament to really diagnosing what the problem was and working on it and finding a way to, and maybe it was subconscious and maybe it just so happened that, in
Can I
10
also
years,
say
the
we've
next crop
we've
of American
mentioned
players came around.
five American men, and three of them have coaches in their boxes that are either very experienced on tour as coaches or players. Ben Shelton obviously has his dad Brian, and Sebi Korda obviously has his dad Petter Korda, and Taylor
And
Fritz has
Roddick
Paul
Stepanek.
Anacone
Yeah.
and what's it called has Paul Anacone and Michael Russell,
Yeah.
a
And
former a great coach
Tommy
and a
Paul
former
has
player.
Brad Stein, and
That's right.
Francis Tiafoe has Wayne Ferreira, like clearly established
5 out of
guys at the,
5.
yeah, clearly established guys at the top.
And I think some credit has to go to the coaches and the people in their boxes that we just mentioned for really completing their game.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think the benefit of picking a former pro as your coach is the amount that they could advise you on shots that are probably weaker for you. I mean, you look at a great example is Roger when he took on Stefan Edberg. And what Roger said the purpose was, and it was to improve his volley game. He wanted to bring it back to what it used to be, and he did. It
Yeah.
did
No.
improve a lot over that time. And I think when you bring on someone with the experience of, like we said, like we rattled off those names, Petter Corda, Brian Shelton, Wayne Ferreira, Michael Russell, former players, and then Paul Anacone being Paul Anacone, um, they bring in such a level of improvement. And like you said, American tennis is in such good hands right now. And back to what you said, you had an All-American semifinal confidently. Go for it.
Yeah. Tangent over. We're coming back full circle. Sorry, everyone, but
Who do
I'm
you
gonna.
have in the second semifinal? You've made clear that you have Coco and Pagula in that first
Yeah.
one.
Well, I'm
Who's
I'm
your
gonna go
second?
Coco over Pagula in that semifinal. I think Coco Gauff reaches
Coco
the
makes her
final here at
second
Wimbledon.
slam final.
Yeah. And then I have Arina Sabalenka beating Elena Rybakina in the other
Really?
semifinal. And then I have Arina Sabalenka beating Coco Gauff in the final.
I have Rybakina over Swiatek. And I do have Rybakina over Sabalenka in the semifinal.
Yeah.
For me, the reason why I lean this towards Rybakina, Sabalenka, I think, is the more powerful player. I think Rybakina is the better mover. And I think
Yeah.
when it comes to grass, where Rybakina beats Sabalenka is even with Sabalenka's very powerful, shots. I think Rybakina is going to be able to position herself well to receive those shots, to change the pace, change whatever she has to, um, and she has very strong, flat, low shots herself that
Yeah.
will trouble Sabalenka to get to the ball because
Yeah.
Sabalenka is not as established in terms of movement on grass. And when you
And
have
you could even
someone,
make the
yeah,
case, yeah. You could even make the case that Rybakina is just more steady than Sabalenka is on this surface.
I
There are less
think
ups and downs that you ride with, and maybe those 1 or 2 points are what you need. I certainly think that that's going to be the match of the tournament. I think
yeah,
that semifinal, if we get it,
I would
could be
I
unreal.
I would say that is my second match of the tournament. My first match of the tournament would be a Rybakina versus Kvitova semifinal.
Quarter, quarterfinal.
Is that quarter? Quarter? Sorry, quarter.
Yeah,
I think that would be my match of the tournament. I
but
think
your point still stands. Yes.
with Rybakina, I just think that this is like this is the grass player for like this time. I don't know how someone's gonna do it. Um, I just think she's proven herself. I also think when it comes to Rybakina versus Sabalenka on the grass, I think Rybakina's game is less risky.
Yeah,
Sabalenka takes a lot more risks,
there's maybe a little
and
more margin for error, but I just
exactly.
think that if to me the case is that if Sabalenka's on, nobody can stop her. And I think she's gonna
I
find
agree, and
just
if she
enough.
makes the semifinal, she will have gathered that momentum. But as will Rybakina,
Yeah, exactly.
as
It
will
could really
Rybakina.
go either way. And
I think
honestly,
that's
I
a
would
three.
even
I think that's a three setter,
yeah,
and that goes in Rybakina's
yeah,
favor, in my opinion.
yeah. I would even go into that match saying Rybakina as the favorite. I'm just picking Sabalenka for that upset and then to win the
It's
title
totally
because I
possible. I mean,
yeah,
upset or not, I was gonna debate if that's an upset, but I just think that
yeah. I mean, she is high. She
Rybakina, in my
is
opinion,
yeah,
is the clear favorite here. I don't think that there's much competition for her outside of Kvitova and Jabeur. Um she can beat Swiatek on this surface. If she can beat Swiatek on a hard court, she can beat Swiatek on a grass court.
yeah,
Um I honestly think that would be if I'm Elena Rybakina, I wouldn't mind seeing Iga in the final. I
yeah,
wouldn't. It also really establishes her.
yeah.
Not that she's not established already, but it just establishes her even more as a part of that big three.
Yeah, absolutely. And how fitting would it be if each of them won the first three Grand Slam titles of the year, with the fourth one coming where all of them are playing and gearing up? It's a great storyline. I actually kind of hope it does go that way.
It
You
would
might
have
have
been
swayed
great.
me.
It
Yeah,
would have been great if Sabalenka was the one that lost to Swiatek at the French Open, and then Swiatek loses to Rybakina. It just would have been
yeah,
like a full triangle.
yeah. No, yeah, it would have been
But
an
how many
interesting
times have we seen
storyline.
that
Yeah,
with the big three on the men's
yeah.
side?
It's clearly yeah,
Even extending to the big four.
yeah.
But our next thing, as we slowly wrap up, on Twitter, um, ever so kindly, John Parsons decided to send us a little question. If not Nori, who will make it farthest of the 18, 18 being the 18 college players in the draw,
Well,
in
18
the
the
Wimbledon draw?
men's. Yeah,
On the men's side, thank you.
I think.
Well,
So
I'll leave it to you first.
Are you counting Francisco Cerundolo?
Thank you for asking. I really because we were discussing this earlier and I was really frustrated. Just because Cerundolo committed to South Carolina but never played a match for them. Um, which is why I find it kind of like low key cheap for me to call him like a full on college player. Um, that's besides the point. I think if we include Cerundolo, I pick Cerundolo. If we're not, I could give it to. There's three players I'm looking at right now. Main two being Ben Shelton and Brandon Nakashima. Um, I'd give a shout out to Maxime Cressy.
Yeah,
I mean, this is the slam that Cressy does the best at, just because his game. That I mean, he's such a good serve and volleyer, and
yeah,
that game style works so well on the grass. I mean, we saw it dominate the grass all throughout, the 80s and the 90s.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
yeah. Well,
it's
Cam
nice to see
Nori.
someone that does
Yeah,
play with a serve and volley style.
yeah. Well, Cam Nori, a former TCU product and a defending semifinalist, you have to probably give him the favorite of saying, "Oh, he's going to make it the farthest at Wimbledon,"
Yeah,
especially with the home crowd behind him. But I'm actually going to go with. Well, in my predictions, I have Mackie McDonald going pretty far, and again, we can hash out the Mackenzie McDonald over Bublik talk later. But I think just
I like Shelton the most out of the
that's fair.
Americans on
But
this
like
list.
when you watch Mackenzie McDonald and you just see the contact point and how effortless his ground strokes are, and just the the
He's just very
ability to,
satisfying to watch.
yeah, exactly. That's a great way to say it. I just really think Mackenzie McDonald could make a run here. He's really comfortable on the surface. It could be a possibility, but yeah, to me, it's either Cerundolo, Mackie. There's just so many great college tennis players in the draw, and we didn't even
I think there's
mention
a
John
lot of
Isner.
I think there's a lot of players that I would pick on other surfaces. I think Chris Eubanks deserves a shout out here.
Yeah.
Obviously coming off of that Mallorca title, but on other surfaces, like you look at the caliber of these players,
Well, we
and
didn't
they're
even
all
mention.
phenomenal
Yeah.
players.
Yeah. And he may be past his prime and close to retirement. Who knows? But we didn't even mention John Isner. He's certainly capable of making a run here at Wimbledon. He's made a semifinal. We also wouldn't be shocked if he spends his first round going 5 and with 5 tie breaks. So
and winning again
yeah,
tie breaks.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, this is
exactly.
if anyone, I mean, honestly, could we see another very long first round from John Isner
No, thank God, because they finally instituted a tie break at 6-all
in the
and
fifth set?
a super
Yeah.
tiebreaker. Yeah. So
But I will say though, he does have a very tough first round in Jaime Munar, and if he gets past that, Lorenzo Musetti
I have him
is
losing to Musetti in
very
the second round.
dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Musetti is very dangerous.
Yeah. I have him
I have
losing
I
there.
have Musetti falling to her catch in the third round.
Yeah. I have Musetti beating Isner in the second and losing to her catch. So we're on the same page there.
But anything else for us here today?
Well, given that we've gone an hour and almost 40 minutes, I figure we give super producer Daniel Westoff a little break. If you want to go farther, you can, but
Oh, we'll give him his break and his props for having to sit through us ramble for an hour and 40 minutes. But yeah, I guess that's all the time we have for this week. This very special live edition. We're ever so grateful that we have gotten to do this live, and we hope you guys enjoyed it and that we can do this again in the future. Archie, I'll
yeah.
turn over to
Any
you.
comments, any takes that you guys want to send out? You really hate what we just said? Go ahead. We don't mind. Reach out to us on Twitter at Suresh Archit, at Richard Mai on Twitter, and Instagram at Cracked Rackets on both. Be sure to check out all our other great content on the Cracked Rackets website, all the action that we've been doing on our YouTube with the SoCal Pro Series, and just
And coming up
boatloads
with
of
Cranbrook.
content. Yeah, boatloads of content and boatloads of content coming soon all your way. Once again, thank you so much to our super producer, Daniel Westoff, and the entire team here at Cracked Rackets. Big thank you to all of you who make it possible for us to do all of this and ramble on about tennis for hours on end. But I think that's about it.
Well,